r/Askreddit X racists of Reddit. What event or events changed you? Not me, but my 6th grade teacher had a brother who served in Vietnam. Apparently he had a guy in their unit who was pretty openly racist. One day he gets hit in combat, and while the rest of his unit is staying in their bunker, the only black guy runs into open fire and drags his ass to safety. If that doesn't fix you, I don't know what would. It was about 3-4 years ago. I was a massive racist fuck. I grew up in a white-only town, all my relatives far right. So normally I was exposed to believing that the whites are superior. When I was 13, my uncle signed me up for some KKK recruitment or some shittily like that. I never went because I was ill, but it still stuck to me. And when I was 15ish, I was fully racist, referring to blacks as N or animals. My friends and I once actually beat up a Mexican kid, something I can never forgive myself. Anyways, one day I was driving with my older brother in our pickup truck, when all of a sudden he lost control of the wheel and we crashed off-road. The truck rolled about 4 times before landing on the roof. My brother was severely injured, while I broke a few ribs and my left leg. Blood splattered all over the truck. I was about to faint when I saw a car pull up next to us. Out of the car exited a black woman in her 40s. She rushed to our truck and pulled me out. She couldn't get my brother out. I fainted. I woke up in the hospital about a day later, with my family surrounding me. Next to me was my bro. He looked like a mummy. After a couple hours, my family left. My brother and I were left alone. I was hungry, so I clicked the call nurse button. And the nurse that came was black. I was not in a position to be racist, so I started talking to her like a normal person. For the first time, I was talking to a person of color like a person. After some time, I became friends with the nurse, calling her sometimes just to talk with her. My brother couldn't speak, but I could see that he was a bit pissed. Then one day my family came to visit again. I was very thirsty, so I called for the nurse again. She arrived and my dad's eyes went up in flames, yelling how an animal could work in a hospital and treat his son. He consulted the doctor and she was forbidden from coming to our room. I was let go after 2 months. I never saw the nurse after the incident. But I realized what I was dealing with. My family is a bunch of racist assholes. When I came back to school, I instantly tried making friends with the black kids, but the damage has been done. Due to my previous behavior, they wouldn't hang out with me, and my old friends abandoned me because I was trying to make friends with black kids. We moved to the large city 7 months later. There I instantly made friends with the kids of color, which was a shock to both other kids and teachers. That day when I came home, I was yelled at and grounded, forbidden from hanging out with them. I continued to be friends with them. My parents are still a bit pissed about everything, but soon I'm going to UNI so I can hang out with anyone, no matter their race, religion and other bullshittery. I started a construction job. Hispanics are some of the nicest, funniest people you'll ever meet. The language barrier even adds to the hilarity. It was an eye-opener that these guys are just trying to make a living and go home, just like me. Landing this job has changed my view on all races, and I'm very happy it did. You can't just hate someone for their distance from the equator. Technically not racism, but when I was a young lad I detested homosexuals. I didn't understand it and thought it was disgusting ... until I met my girlfriend's brother. He was openly gay, competed in drag queen contests, and was proud ... in a redneck Oklahoma town, population 900. He was, and is, one of the nicest people I've ever met, and he totally reversed my opinion of the LGBTQ community. My dad was one of the most bigoted, homophobic men I've come across while growing up. I always heard him say homosexuals should be wiped out because they're immoral and disgusting. Until I, his only daughter, turned out to be the most butch lesbian in the world, LOL. He almost went nuts over it. One day, I told him I wish somebody would kill me for those same reasons just so he can see how shallow that'd be. I saw panic in his eyes after I said that. I saw defeat and realization and sadness. Believe me, that night changed our lives. He now loves my girlfriend like his own daughter, feels personally attacked when people are being homophobic, and makes himself responsible to educate them why gay people should never be treated like second-class humans. I used to be a neo-Nazi. I fear for my life from the group I left. The criminal elements are hypocrites as they are against drug use but were manufacturing heroin, and I was addicted to that. I had to join the army to get clean and far away. It's like any other group, they used race as a uniting factor and brainwashed propaganda as a factor. The drugs kept me chained, and the racism was seen as a loyalty, that whole blood and honor garbage. What changed my heart can be had as a religious moment of clarity and the love I had for my little cousin of mixed race. I didn't want to be part of that, and I realize gangs of whites or blacks all operate on a similar BS principle. For anyone reading this, you can get out, and you can get away. Message me if you need support. Free yourself from these degenerates. I come from a family of racists. They spoke of other than whites races using ethnic slurs as common as commenting on the weather. When I was about 5, my older brother and I went into the local bakery to pick up an order for our mum who was waiting in the car. A black boy was in front of us in line. This was something I hadn't often seen, and I said very loudly to my brother, "Look, it's the N-word." My brother quickly shushed me, which made me very confused, but it was the crushed look on the boy's face that made me start to question my family's viewpoint. Over 40 years later, I have a very diverse friend group, but still feel shame on how I made that boy feel those many years ago. Moved away from home. Got into the punk skin scene here and just wanted to fit in. It took me years to realize the guys I looked up to were listening to tons of music from people they claimed to hate, and that they too just wanted to be a part of something. A short time after that I realized that for myself, it wasn't something I actually wanted to be a part of. I was hating something because I was either afraid of it or didn't understand it, and that made me feel weak. Also, at the time, the last thing I wanted to be was weak. Not very long after I kind of cut ties, I realized as well that the guys I thought were tough were actually kind of pussies. They would talk a big game behind closed door or in a crowd of like-minded people, but if they were alone on the street it was completely different. They wouldn't stand up for their beliefs, and I knew why. Because they knew those beliefs were wrong and fucked up, to be honest. Still took me another period of time to realize we are all humans going through our own shit, and life is too short to hate for zero reason. Been waiting for this question. So I was born in Alabama, still here, and come from a deeply white Christian family. When I was younger I was told to stay away from blacks, Mexicans, Jews, and Muslims. Funny enough, not only did I grow up learning to call blacks the N-word, but Mexicans, Jews, and Muslims were followed by the N-word. Yep, literally, Mexican N-word is what my dad taught us to call them. Well anyways, my deep hate for non-whites/non-Christians was deeply rooted thanks to my parents. Until in 2011, a tornado outbreak swept through the South. I did a lot of voluntary work, met some black people, but was still worried about being around them. Until about a week or two later when our school reopened. We had a lot of new kids from various areas that were damaged. Most of them black. So the next school year I get partnered up with this black girl in our history class, and I'm mostly focused on our project, but we ended up talking for a while. She ended up being my first girlfriend a few weeks later, and after I met her family and learned what they went through because of the 2011 outbreak, plus her parents were from Birmingham during the civil rights movements, I started to learn that love is more powerful than hate. That ability to make someone smile. There's nothing better than that. While me and her broke up later on, she had a massive impact on my life. I still live in Alabama, and I still hear racist remarks from my parents, and from strangers. They will pass away, and sure they may have already left behind their mark of hatred. But hate can be erased with love. I wouldn't say I was racist, but more uneducated. I grew up in a predominantly white town, so when I was 10 and I moved to a city that was more diverse, it was weird for me. All I had to go off of was how other ethnicities were portrayed in pop culture. Well, that and my racist aunt and some other closed-minded family members. So it was weird for me at first, but then I realized we weren't as different at all. All was alright. Plus it helped that my older brother talked to me about it before we moved. We were driving in our dad's black Ford truck and we saw another truck very similar to his, just a different color, that was broken down on the side of the highway. He asked what I thought was wrong with it. I said probably the engine or something like that broke. Remember, I was 10. He asked if I thought it was because the truck was a different color that it wasn't working and ours was. I said no, that made no sense. He said, and that's why racism makes no sense. Oddly still remember that, but I barely remember us moving. Weird. Thank you for watching all the way until the end of the video. If you were at all entertained, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing for future content. Stay safe everyone, until next time.